And she looked in there and she said, "I see the head. Your baby's coming out in the next push." And I remember thinking, like, that's not possible. We just got here. A week ago, I gave birth to our son, and it was totally not the birthing experience I was expecting, but it was actually probably the best I could have hoped for. A little disclaimer, this video is all about labor and delivery, which can be a little bit messy to talk about. I'll try not to go into too much graphic detail, but you've been warned. First of all, for some context, here's what happened at our daughter Arden's birth about 3 years ago. I wasn't expecting the same kind of experience, but it was kind of my baseline for expectations. With Arden, I had about 20 hours of early labor, starting with contractions at like 1:30 in the morning the day before. The contractions were painful but manageable. When we arrived at the hospital that night at 10, I was around 4 centimeters dilated. So for those of you that don't know, labor is a lot of things, but it's pretty much your body preparing to push a baby, which is a fairly large thing, out of your cervix, which is a very small hole. If you're 1 centimeter dilated, that's about the size of a Cheerio, and your cervix has to grow to 10 centimeters, which is about the size of a bagel. Anyway, it's a really painful process, if you can imagine. So that labor was very gradual, contraction after contraction, lots of animalistic primal noises coming out of me. The midwife put on some nice music, dimmed the lights, and she tried to get me to use like some of the natural pain remedies available to me, like a big bathtub, a birthing ball, all this stuff. All I wanted to do was sit on the edge of the bed and squeeze Ben's hand and scream. A few hours later at 7 centimeters, I asked for nitrous oxide gas, which is like laughing gas. And it's like a mild form of pain relief. It doesn't take the pain away, but it just makes you care about it less. And then a few hours later at 9 centimeters, I asked for a shot of morphine for pain relief. And that didn't really do a whole lot, but it helped like slow down things a little bit before it got too intense. After that, I pushed for about an hour and a half, and things weren't really progressing. The baby was in distress, so I had an episiotomy, which is where they cut your vagina in order to give the baby more room to come out. And Arden was vacuumed out at 10 in the morning, so about 12 hours of active labor, something like that. Afterwards, I had some post-birth complications. I had some postnatal hemorrhaging afterwards, so I needed to get like an IV and a catheter. But despite all of that, I considered it a very normal birth after a fairly uneventful pregnancy. This pregnancy was a little bit more complicated, mostly because I had gestational diabetes. So late in my pregnancy, the baby was measuring large on the ultrasound, and there was talk about maybe inducing me early, but nothing really came of that. I was told I would probably have to be induced either on or around my due date of March 1st. I was supposed to have my final checkup with the doctor on Wednesday, February 27th. On Tuesday, February 26th, I started to feel like the Braxton Hicks contractions were a little bit more painful. I've been having Braxton Hicks contractions, which are like fake contractions, since like the beginning of my 2nd trimester of pregnancy, so it wasn't really a big deal to me, and I figured I could be like getting ready for labor, but you know, it could be a while. And then I started noticing some bloody discharge, which could be a sign of labor as well, and a little bit of mucus too, which was most likely the mucus plug coming out. And by that evening, I felt like I was in pretty early labor. I've been feeling a little bit crampy. Could be the start of labor. He's definitely been moving a lot. It's a really weird feeling to know that you're probably gonna be in like the most pain of your life in a day or a few days, and to kind of look forward to it because, you know, it's just one step closer to meeting your baby. So we'll see if I make it through the night. But I texted my doula and also the friends that were gonna watch Arden for us, and I just kind of let them know that things might be progressing soon. So I took a nice hot shower to ease the pain. I asked Ben for a back rub in bed, and then I tried to go to sleep, but it was hard because the contractions were getting a little bit worse. By midnight or so, they were about 7 minutes apart, which is still pretty early labor. A little before 2 a.m., I had a contraction, and then I felt a little like pop, and then glug glug glug. and I was like, oh my goodness, my water broke. Fortunately, I had thought to lie on a towel in bed. I was pretty excited because with Arden, I didn't have like a water breaking experience. It didn't break at home and it didn't break at the hospital. The doctors never said anything about needing to break it. I guess I must have just lost my water somewhere. But this time I got my Hollywood water breaking experience and I was pretty excited. I was in a lot more pain, but still like nothing too bad. Like it definitely reminded me of like early labor, which was 20 hours with Arden. So I crawled into bed and I told Ben, like, I think my water broke. Maybe we should call the hospital. So we called the hospital and they told us to come in because second babies can apparently come really quickly. So I called my doula, we called our friends that were gonna watch Arden. My contractions were definitely picking up and I was using a birth ball to help me through them. And it's kind of a miracle that Arden didn't wake up because I was making these really loud noises at this point, and that would have been really interesting. Our amazing friends, Renelle and Gaz, came over to help us out. Renelle stayed with Arden while Gaz drove us to the hospital, and we arrived there at around 3:30 a.m. The contractions were getting a lot stronger and closer together. By the time we got to the hospital, they were about 3 minutes apart, so things were starting to pick up. Checking in was difficult because we had to give them all this information like in between all like the horrible noises I was making. But we finally got me checked in, and the midwife, she didn't even look at my cervix. She just looked at my condition and she just put me in a wheelchair and practically raced me to the birthing suite, which was interesting because during my first labor, they made me walk to the birthing suite to help move things along. And obviously this time they didn't want me to move things along. We got to the birthing suite and suddenly each contraction was like 10 times worse than the previous one. I'm not sure what stages of labor I went through at the hospital, but I'm pretty sure I went from active labor to the transition phase in like 3 contractions. I went from like making very controlled but loud primal noises to like full out screaming. And I started pushing even though I had all my clothes on. I couldn't help myself. The midwife was kind of freaking out because she was looking at me and saying, "Are you feeling some pressure down there? Like, are you pushing?" And I couldn't even answer her. I was like, "Ugh." So the midwife pulled off my shorts and she looked in there and she said, "I see the head. Your baby's coming out in the next push." And I remember thinking, like, that's not possible. We just got here. Like, my doula isn't here. We were supposed to do aromatherapy and acupuncture and use the hot tub and do massages and put fake candlelight everywhere. We were supposed to do all this stuff, and there was no time for any of that. There wasn't time for any kind of pain relief, like no matter how natural. The midwife got the baby in position and she told me to push, and I did, and she said, the head is out. Do you want to catch your baby? And I reached down and I grabbed him and I put him on my chest, and suddenly he was here. We named him Logan Lang Kortlever. Logan is a name that we just really liked. It doesn't have any like special meaning to us or anything. It just felt right to us. And Lang is Ben's late maternal grandmother's maiden name, and it's also a Chinese name even though she wasn't Chinese. It's just one of those cool names that can be either Asian or not Asian, kind of like Young or Lee, I guess. And we thought it would be a really nice way to honor both of our families. So basically the time spent at the birthing suite from arrival to birth was about like 10 minutes. It was insane. The hospital records show that my active labor was under 2 hours, and with Arden it was 12 hours, so that's a big difference. So my doula arrived shortly after the birth, and she took really nice video of some of the after birth moments. I was really glad she was there for the next part of delivery because it was actually pretty painful. The doctor had to massage my uterus to get a lot of blood clots out. With my first pregnancy, I had a lot of blood clotting issues after delivery. They wanted to prevent that from happening again. Plus I needed some stitches, which was probably the episiotomy re-tearing a little bit. I was actually given nitrous oxide gas, the laughing gas, to help relieve the pain. I'm actually really grateful for that because so far I haven't had nearly as much bleeding postpartum as I did with Arden. I guess in general I'm really happy with this labor and delivery. I had been worried about needing to be induced early, which could have led to complications and the need for an epidural, but in the end I didn't have to worry about that at all. Like, I wanted a natural vaginal birth, no pain relief, and I definitely got that. So I'm really grateful that I was allowed to carry to term and that things just worked out naturally for me. If I think about it a little too much, I get kind of scared for myself because, you know, this could have happened in the middle of the day when Ben was at work and there was heavy traffic, and it very well could have been a home birth or a grocery store birth. I try not to think about it too much. And for all the fuss they were making about the baby possibly measuring too large, Logan was actually smaller than Arden was at birth. Arden was about 7 pounds 2 ounces and Logan was 6 pounds 11 ounces. So I'm really glad I wasn't induced earlier because it would have been for no reason at all. So diabetes wise, Logan passed all of his blood sugar tests, thankfully. I was monitored loosely, but they just told me to eat like I normally eat. In about 5 weeks I'll have to take that awful glucose tolerance test again. Which I'm not looking forward to, but I guess that's when we'll find out if I actually have diabetes or not. It's great to have a full variety of foods to choose from, but I'll definitely be a little more wary of portion control and sugar content in the future. Logan and I stayed at the hospital for 2 nights and we were discharged on his due date, which was exciting. And we don't have a car, so we just decided to bring him home in the stroller. So we walked from the hospital to the city, and we picked up some iced coffee on the way, and then we just hopped on a tram and went home. Anyway, we're all doing really well. Logan is a very chill baby, and we've been soaking up all those baby snuggles. Arden loves being a big sister. When she first saw Logan, her eyes just lit up. She loves patting him and kissing him on the head. At first she was pretty intimidated when he would cry, but she's kind of gotten used to it now. So far, Logan doesn't really interact with anyone, but whenever he hears Arden's voice, he kind of perks up, which is really sweet. So this week we've been settling into our new routine and trying to adjust as a family of 4. It's a lot to handle and I'm exhausted, but I can safely say now that the first week with Logan has been so much more manageable than the first week with Arden when she was a baby. Not because Arden was like a terrible baby or anything, but we're just so relaxed about things now. Breastfeeding has also been a lot smoother. I breastfed Arden for 2 years, so I didn't have any like big problems. But the first few weeks of breastfeeding her were like excruciating and I wanted to give up so many times. But I know what I'm doing now and breastfeeding Logan has been a breeze in comparison. I mean, with newborns, you have to take it like day by day, sometimes hour by hour, and babies are always changing. And I know they're gonna be really hard times ahead. But overall, so far, things have been so much better this time around. And I'm actually like enjoying these days of getting to know my new baby. Thank you to our friends and family for all the love and support. A huge thank you to Renelle and Gaz for everything, for watching Arden, for being on call in the middle of the night, for taking us to the hospital. I'm really glad I didn't have the baby in the car. A big thank you to my duo Vaughn for being so supportive and nourishing during my pregnancy journey. Thank you to Ben and Arden for being the best family I could hope for. And Logan, you are so perfect and I love you so much. We did this together. I'm still trying to process and comprehend Logan's birth story. It was amazing and beautiful and crazy and intense, and not gonna lie, a little bit traumatic, but it all worked out in the end and I wouldn't have it any other way. So I have this tradition where I like to write songs for my kids before they're born. When Arden was a little mooncake, I wrote her a lullaby and I'm gonna do the same for my son. It's a little bit cheesy, but it's just something I like to do to express myself.
You were formed from hope and our prayers too, and you were a dream come true. Then I carried you close to my heart, and there you grew. And I don't know what the future holds. There are no guarantees. Our hopes and dreams for the boy you'll be, we'll try our best to see. See, this world can be a great many things. There is pain, but so much joy. And my little one, you'll know both and so much more. And I don't know what the future holds. There are no guarantees, but you should know the day you were born. You were loved, and so were we. You are loved, and so